Ready?
Yep.
In three, two, one. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Welcome
Welcome
back.
to What Catholic School Didn't Teach You, where we discuss the complexities and methiness of, of the Catholic faith, and talk about topics that we don't typically discuss. My name is Katie.
And I'm Jillian.
How you doing, Jilly?
I am good. I'm good. A little tired, but good. I feel like that's usually the normal state, but
Yeah,
I think I'm still recuperating from my service trip 2 weeks ago.
that's fair.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I'm doing well. How about you, Katie?
I'm doing well. I think we're experiencing a very similar thing. Like Jake had a bachelor party 2 weeks ago. I had a bachelorette party, not this past weekend, but the one before.
Mhm.
And we're also still recovering from those. And so I think that's just, we're not 20 anymore.
That's for sure.
So that and yours was a lot longer and a lot more intensive. So I feel like that's fair. Maybe it will take you that long to recover. That's okay.
Yeah. I hit my
Hi,
hold on,
Trevor.
please. Trevor Eugene.
That's staying in. I'm not taking that out.
Sorry for my son. Um, I hit my people quota.
Mm,
Like I peopled so much that week that I haven't really been able to people
hmm
again. So I'm just coming back into being able to people. Um, and was able today. I had a lot of meetings today, but talked to a lot of students and was able to get back into the swing of things. But like last week, catch me running out of work. Like, no one look at me. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't have the mental capacity to have conversations. But we're getting better. We're getting better.
I get that. We had our friend Abby, our mutual friend Abby. Hi Abby. Longtime listener.
Hi.
At Ithaca this weekend, which was really fun. And we went back to that winery that we went to, Jill.
I thought it looked
Um,
familiar.
yeah. And just like, yeah. And just like hung out and she was like, I feel like I'm on a retreat. Like just like at my country house in Ithaca,
Yes.
which was really fun. And we had our first cookout and fire of the season, which was a little
Wow.
premature because then it snowed last night. So
What?
we're
Oh
very
my
confused
gosh.
here weather-wise.
That's wild.
Yeah, but we're good. All's good in the neighborhood. Let's do a quick Lenten check-in. How's Lent going for you, Jill? Not even just like
Lent.
your challenges, how is the
Mhm.
season going for you?
I feel like Lent is flying by because Easter is next week.
No, no, no,
Um,
no, 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 no.
oh, yeah,
It's in well, I guess, yeah. Okay. A week and a half.
not this Sunday, next Sunday.
Yeah, okay. No, you just like I just panicked. I was like, it's not this Sunday, please. It can't be this Sunday.
Yeah, no.
I haven't done any
Um,
ordering.
I'm excited for Easter. And this weekend is Palm Sunday, and I really enjoy Palm Sunday. I last year I remember vividly my Palm Sunday because I was at work and I had to read the part of oh shoot, Pilot. Wait, is that yeah, regardless, I had to read one of the parts. And I as a kid, I hated reading the part of the crowd because I didn't want to feel responsible for Jesus getting crucified, and yelling crucify him made me sad,
That's
and I
fair.
never participated in it
That's really sweet.
because I was really upset. I really did not enjoy it. But now that I was reading, so I wasn't the crowd because I was standing on the altar reading whomever's part I was reading. And I just remember feeling this sense of in this moment, this whether it was the person asking Jesus to no, like literally, I really wish I had this in front of me because I feel like I'm like really butchering what I want to say because I can't think of who freaking said it. But for the first time, I had really put myself in the shoes of what it must have been like at that time to be part of this. Like the times where I wasn't strong enough to stand up for what I believe in and would go with the crowd, even though I knew that it
Mhm.
wasn't right what was being done, but it was easier to just agree with what people are saying than to stand up and say this isn't right and
Mhm.
I want to do it a different way. Or in life with to Jesus that yes, it's the crowd and but that's us. That's Jesus died for us. And
Sure.
with all of our shortcomings and all of the hard messiness of who we are, God looked at us and loved us anyway. And I just remember having this realization as I'm standing up there, like getting very emotional, that that we are all part of this passion narrative. We are all wherever you see yourself and whatever character you put yourself in at the time, or person, not really character, but person that you put yourself in their shoes, everyone was at fault. And that was kind of the point. There's no getting out of this passion unscathed.
Mm.
And that's kind of that's the point. That it's easy to say, oh, it was, the Jews at the time, it's their fault, or, you know, the disciples, they fell asleep and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and Judas betrayed Jesus and all this stuff, and they were the ones that started this whole thing. But in our own lives we mirror these instances where we fall asleep and we don't pay attention to what Jesus is calling us to do,
Mhm.
or we see an injustice happen in front of our eyes and we stay silent, or whatever the case is, that we take on these personas and we become these people throughout our lives. But that's the beauty of the crucifixion, is that in that pain and suffering there is so much love and joy and mercy because of the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. And Holy Week is one of my favorite weeks because of that. I think Lent can sometimes get messy for me, as this Lent has been very messy for me. But I think it all really snaps into focus from Palm Sunday to Easter Sunday for me. So I'm looking forward to that time. Um, I'm looking forward to spending time with my family.
Mm.
I'm looking forward to taking a little break. um, but also just looking forward to the ways that I will see Jesus in a different light and what that will do to my heart as the week continues. So that's what I'm looking forward to for next week.
Oh, that's really beautiful, Jill.
Thank you. What about you?
So my first Lent as a college campus minister, I'm used to it being much more involved with middle school children or high school students or elementary children. Used to it being like an everyday, like a literal every single day
Mhm.
activity, like mass or prayer or, special event. So this has been a little bit different just because I don't see my students every single day. I see them definitely on Sundays. And if they swing by the office during the week, I'll see them. Or if they come to one of the events we put on, I'll see them. Um, so it's just been a little bit, it's kind of been the first Lent that I've stopped looking at as like a programming time, as like 40 days of programming. What are we going to do? And more like, hey, 40 days of prayer and reflection and like offering up space for people to come and be vulnerable and be themselves and be honest and find a little bit more of themselves and discover a little bit more of who they want to become. And that includes us as the campus ministers, which has been really cool and really fun. I'm not, as Steph said a couple weeks ago, not a Lent girly. Uh, but I do love the Easter season, so I'm really excited to. This is very, very much on brand for me, but get out of the uncomfortable, like, hey, this is sad, and into the like, hey, this is awesome.
Right.
Time of the time between Easter and Pentecost. That's always a good time. So yeah, looking forward to that, and then we'll do like we'll have, because in there we have confirmation and we have
Mhm.
students being baptized, and we have uh, a lot of interfaith things planned with other faith organizations on campus. So that'll be really fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. That's great.
So today we are talking about vocation and mission. This is a topic that I've been thinking about for a very long time, and Jill and I have been discussing for a very long time, and we've thought of a couple of different ways to do it. So I say that because we're going to be coming back to this topic again with other people who have other opinions and other thoughts that
Yes.
are not ours. But to start us off, what's the difference between vocation and mission? Vocation is often seen, if I may quote the one and only Merriam-Webster dictionary, a summons or a strong inclination to a particular state or course of action, a divine call, the work to which a person is employed, such as an occupation, or a special function or of an individual or a group. So I find it interesting here that Merriam-Webster does define vocation as an occupation because growing up, that's not how it was presented to us in Catholic school.
hmm
And so as I mentioned, didn't go to Catholic school to high school. And when I got there, they started throwing out this big word of vocation. And then I think typical Catholic like lingo and like at least in education lingo, there's like four states you can choose, right? You can go to married life, you can go into consecrated single life, you can become a priest, or you can join a religious order as a brother or sister or nun.
hmm
And they always made it very clear growing up that your vocation was not your occupation.
mm
And I thought maybe that was just like, oh, well, that was just the times I grew up in. But now working in Catholic schools for so long and working with several priests, they also say the same thing. Your vocation is not your occupation.
hmm
However, leaving high school and going into college and working with the Marianists and going into grad school and working with the Jesuits, they very much do view an overlap at the very least between
hmm
your occupation and your vocation. So I've always been really confused, I don't know about you, Jill, about
Yeah.
what this means. Because obviously, I understand the breakdown of the four, right? Of like, okay, this is your quote unquote path in life in relationship to your God and your community and yourself, I suppose, right? My vocation is married life. I have friends whose vocation is single life. I have friends whose vocation is, the brotherhood
mm
or priesthood. But I've like I don't understand, I guess, the relationship between vocation and occupation and how so many different circles in Catholicism view it so differently.
hmm Yeah, I really love that you broke it down that way because I don't think it was ever really clear to me that your occupation and your vocation were not the same thing.
Right.
I think I've always viewed it as the same. And I think that's very interesting because taking faith out of the conversation. Think about when you meet someone for the first time, right?
Sure.
And you're making small talk and they ask, what's the one of the first questions that someone asks is, what do you do?
Yeah, so what do you do?
That's how we define ourselves as people,
Hmm.
is by what we're doing. And thinking of vocation in those four categories that you gave us, I think to me, while you were speaking, I was like, okay, so then there's vocation and then there's vocation, like
Hmm.
small v, little big v, like, church and church, as Lennon would
I
say.
just like that you use Father Lanon's voice, yeah.
But for some reason, it just clicked in my brain that I always thought that this vocation had to be the thing in your life that you're being called to do,
Right.
right? And in those categories, that's still true.
Right.
But your vocation is actually that simple.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be this profession that you seek out and you become this great person in this field of whatever it is, and that's your
Hmm.
vocation. The way that you choose to just exist in the world is your vocation,
Hmm.
whether that's you choose to be someone who is married or be someone that is a religious or single, whatever that is. At the heart of it, that's where your vocation lies, because anything you do outside of that stems from the heart of that vocation.
Sure.
If I think about myself as a campus minister pre-marriage and post-marriage, the way that I'm able to show up in those spaces are completely different from when I was single to when I'm now that I'm not. From the amount of time I can can give to something, the life knowledge that I've now gained from having this different perspective and becoming being in union with another person,
Mhm.
and what that changes your heart to become. I think it's really interesting that making that distinction, that your vocation and occupation are two different things, is really mind-blowing to me right now, which I wasn't expecting, because I obviously read our notes beforehand. But hearing you say that, I don't know, it just like really clicked into my brain, because when I think about my own life path and how I feel when I picked the jobs that I wanted to have, I feel like it's not just, I probably even said this in the interview. It's not just that this job, I feel called to this work, that there's a deeper desire to be a campus minister because I feel called to that, because how I would have normally said it is that's my vocation.
Mhm.
I, Now that I think about it, I don't really think that that's really what I'm was trying to say. I think I was kind of muddling the two,
Mhm.
because what is there's a difference between a job and a spiritual call, but
Mhm.
also I think where do you see vocation kind of fitting into the mix, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I'm saying is making any
No,
sense or
no,
not.
that makes total sense. I really like what you just said about the small V and big V, because my whole so when I left high school and people were like, "Well, your vocation," like they started, there was this mix between vocation and occupation. I was like, "Oh, like that makes sense." Like I that's just something they didn't talk about in high school because I don't know why.
Right.
So I started using that vocation as like what I'm called to do in terms of employment, like occupation. And I can hear a voice in the back of my head that's like, so what? Why does this matter? Like, why does it matter what the difference is between occupation and vocation? Does this, like, in the long run, no, it doesn't really matter. But when I left grad school and I thought my vocation was to work with the unhoused population of Boston,
Mm,
and then I burned out so hard and was not mentally prepared or mentally healthy enough to deal with everything that came with that, and I could no longer follow through with that job, with that occupation. That like kind of wrecked me for a minute because then I was like, well, I can't do my vocation.
mm,
This is my vocation. This is what I am spiritually called to do. And it messed with me a lot. And it took me a while to rebuild that and understand like, no, 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 this was not your vocation. This was your job. A job where you found Christ every single day. A job where you worked really hard and where you grew as a human being. But this was not what you are spiritually called to do, right? And then I started thinking about, well, what happens when I get a job I moved home to Toledo, right? So what happens when I get a job in Toledo and I inevitably move to, South Bend where Jake was, or Jake and I moved to, where else? Turns out it was Ithaca. What happens? What happens then? Like, does
mhm,
my vocation change based on location? If I'm
mm,
spiritually called to be a teacher and a campus minister, what happens? And that happened again. We moved to Ithaca, and there are no Catholic schools in Ithaca, right? I'd have to drive like an hour and a half away to teach at a Catholic school. And I'd previously been teaching. So then again, like what happens to your vocation, I suppose, when you burn out or when that path is no longer offered to you, but you view vocation as your spiritual
mm,
call in your occupation. Like, is this making
right.
any sense?
Yes, absolutely. And to the point of why like when you said, why does it matter? This is why I think it matters,
Right.
because the fact of the matter is we are going to evolve and change so much, and the skills that we end up acquiring or the dreams that we had for ourselves or where we saw our lives going is going to shift. And if we put our worth and our being based on a job or an occupation that is human based, that unfortunately, no matter if it's in a Catholic organization or not, a lot of times, we are replaceable in the corporate world,
Yeah, I mean,
like
this is still
these are
capitalism.
things, right? Like things are gonna, that's not guaranteed for us, that
Mhm,
these jobs that we're going to be in. But that is why I think when we think about vocation in the smaller sense of or the root of where we find our passion or we
mhm,
find God's call, is that I know without a shadow of a doubt that I am called to be of service to people. I
mhm.
am a people person, even though I peopled too much the other week. I am a people person. I enjoy having conversations with people. I enjoy being assistance to them and to finding themselves, finding their relationship with God. Going on that journey with people is something that I enjoy.
Mhm.
Now, I've gone from high school campus minister to college campus minister, and I find myself at a point where I'm at my dream job right now. The job that for the last 10 years I asked God for and I prayed for, that this was it. This was going to be the thing. And now I've done it for a year and a half. And I think that there could be more
Mhm.
out there for me to do. And it's a weird thing to think about what happens when the vocation or the job that you thought was going to be the thing that God was calling you to, and this is it, turns out that it's not.
Mhm.
Because if we base our vocation in another, external job or the occupation, that's when I think we get ourselves rocked. That I could really empathize with that feeling of, well, this is what I thought I was supposed to do. So, like, am I wrong? Is God wrong? Am I hearing God wrong?
Right,
Where are you in this? Like, what is
right.
happening here? Because this is like, I prayed for it and then you gave it to me, and now I'm confused. So, the boat's rocked. Okay. Boat's sinking, and I don't know what's happening here. And now we're thinking about Jesus. I'm sure that, he was thinking he was going to be like just a carpenter his whole life. And then look at the way that Jesus evolved to being Jesus. He didn't clock being crucified on his to-do list
I
at like 5 years old, probably.
don't
But
know, he might have.
that I feel like no. That's what I am betting on. But like, we need to leave, we as in Jillian, but I'm talking to myself right now, but also probably to everyone as well, but I need to hear this myself, need to give room for the ways that our lives will evolve and we will evolve and God's call will evolve. Because even just the needs, if I even just look at my students, the needs of students from when we were in college
Mhm.
versus college kids 5 years ago versus college kids right now are vastly different. And
Right.
part of being in ministry is that, one is that, when you sign up to be in any part of ministry, that you make a plan and God laughs. 95% of the time, nothing goes to plan.
Yeah.
And you always need to be ready to adapt and change and make a new plan.
Mhm.
And who's not going to show up, or what were you banking on that fell through, or whatever the case is. There's usually, because the Holy Spirit works in chaos. So there is tons of chaos within campus ministry, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, God works God's magic and everything ends up fine. And I think I forget that that's also reigns true in my own life, that I'm going to go through the chaos, even more chaos than what I would have liked to have gone through. I feel like you could have got the point through, you know, in other ways, but it's okay. I'll rock with you there, Jesus, for a little bit, but it's all going to end up okay. And I feel like that's like such an interesting thing. But I think, especially when I'm thinking of my vocation as a job, and I had a wonderful conversation with Jake when I was with visiting Katie a couple weeks ago. and we were talking about this very subject. And one of the things he was saying is that, I could, if you don't already know, I think I talked about it on here as well already. I love a good Costco hot dog, right? So love Costco, big fan. Shout out to Sean working for Costco. But we also, I can live out my vocation working at Costco and being that presence, giving you a hot dog with a smile and saying have a great day, because you don't know what the life of the person that's receiving that's going through, and maybe you're the only smiling person that they see in that day, and your act of kindness and generosity or whatever it is in that moment can be a huge life altering altercation for them that you don't even understand. Like, God is in the mundane of the world. And when I think that the only way that I can be successful or I could live out my vocation is through this one avenue, you lose out on the different ways that you can see God in the everyday.
Sure.
And something, and then in the little voice in my head is saying, well, that's it. Again, not to knock anyone that works at Costco, because again, love Costco, but there's like a part of my brain that's like, okay, but is that just an excuse so that you can leave and do something that is not your vocation? And I'm quotes doing air quotes right
Small
now.
V, little V.
Yeah, that is, I don't want to look like I failed. I don't want, the people I went to grad school with to be like, oh, she's at Costco now. She gave up on her vocation. She gave up and didn't, push through,
I
or
mean,
she
if you
couldn't
get us
push.
deals on your membership, no, on our membership, no one's gonna look down on you.
Yeah. So, I think that's something I always really need to tell myself too, is that you can, we hear that free that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, and you want to make the money and be happy at what you're doing and feel fulfilled and feel like you're doing what God is calling you to do. But and even though I used to pride myself on not really caring what other people think, but I do care that I'm able to say that I have this job, or that this is something that I choose to put my time in and
Right.
do, and that it's fulfilling and all this stuff. And I like work myself up and I go in circles, but I think the most important thing to think about, to come back to at least, is that God is in all things.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what it is that you're doing, whether you are working at Costco or you're a lawyer or a doctor or whatever it is that you're doing or teaching, whatever, that you can be that example of God's love and mercy in those roles.
Right.
You don't need to work in a place that, work for just the church or work just in campus ministry, or and have that be considered in quote vocation.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you are doing, you can make that be the thing that you're called to. You
Right.
can be really good at doing people's taxes and also be that example of love and mercy to the
Mm-hmm.
people that you are helping.
Right.
And you can work at Costco or work at wherever and do that so well, that in a way that only you can do, and be that example of God's love and mercy to those people.
Sure.
And all of it matters.
Right. So that brings me to a question about mission, but before I get there, I do I do want to admit that like there is part of me that like, okay, so now we've decided, okay, vocation is not necessarily your occupation, right? A vocation is a spiritual call. Okay. That does leave me with that like, but I don't really necessarily like the fact that, and this is not, look, I'm not going to change the Catholic Church on this podcast, right? That's not going to happen. Mainly because I don't think this is two women, so nobody's going to take us seriously. But
Oh my God.
uh, I don't necessarily like the fact that vocation, if it's not occupation, is defined by the Catholic Church as just those four avenues,
Mm,
right? And I
right.
understand why. It's because it's, a way to express the love of God in your relationships and in
Mhm.
your everyday life. But there is that part of me that's still like, why do men get 3 options and women only get men get 4 options and women only get 3? There's like there is just a little contrary part of me that I will never be able to get rid of. That's like, well, if it's not occupation and it's just about whether or not a man owns me or a church owns me,
Yeah.
like then like that's not a good enough definition either. And I recognize that that is not exactly correct about
Yeah, it's not
what
all that it's saying,
I
but it
know.
is saying.
Yes, that's not all that it is saying, but there is that part of it of like,
Mhm.
why are you so concerned defining my relationship status?
Mhm.
Why can't vocation just be like you're saying, a spiritual call to express God's love and mercy in every relationship you have,
Mhm.
and specifically with whatever life path you choose?
Mhm.
Why are you so
And
worried about who's owning me? That's all I want to know.
right. Mm.
Does that
And
make
I
sense?
guess, yeah, it does. It very much does. And I think the best, I know it's not really an answer, but I guess the way that I think about it for it to make sense to me is that we are created to be relational humans.
Yeah, sure.
And being a human that decides to be married to another human or not,
Hmm.
it does, as a, like I said before, as being a campus minister, married and single, I can tell you that that does impact the way that I am able to show up.
Right.
Not saying one is better or worse, it's just different.
Right. No, 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 that makes sense.
And I think at its core, because we are relational beings, to have that be one of the bases, because that's what when you're getting, when you marry another person, that's what you're saying, is that
Mhm.
you're two are becoming one, and everything we do flows from this union.
Mhm.
And that's what religious and whatever, if you're single, however you want to do that, that is, I think, creates that base that you then flow from, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
No, that makes total
that's
sense.
that's the way that, like, I think I can think about it without, so I don't get too angry.
I think that that's a really nice. I think that that's a perfect way to think about it.
Oh,
Because
thanks.
yeah, otherwise I would I do get angry. Vocation, I don't know if you've picked up on it. This has been a hot topic in my brain
Mhm.
for several years, and I've had no outlet for it until today.
Well, I love that this is the outlet. Love that. I mean, because it stinks, because being a woman in the church, as we've talked about, is not the easiest at times. And I've previously worked with priests that didn't give me the time of day until I was engaged,
Hmm.
because now that another man had deemed me as worthy, then he can have a conversation with me. Then he could listen to what I was going to say. But before then, wouldn't even look my direction. So, and I've had priests tell me that they don't like women, so they don't really care what I have to say because I'm not smart enough. I've had it happen to me, unfortunately.
Hot take.
So,
Hot take.
so it's frustrating to feel like, and I didn't choose to be Jillian. God made me Jillian. This is how I was birthed into the world, and I had no control over it. But then you're going to tell me that I can't do things, or I'm not
Mm-hmm.
good enough, or XYZ,
Mm-hmm.
because of things I have no control over. As I'm staring at my statue of the Blessed Mother, that, fun fact, every woman in my mom's side of the family has their own statue of the Blessed Mother, and each one got it and was like, it was passed down. So this is actually my mom's,
Oh,
and my mom has my nan's, and my aunt has her mom's.
that's so
So like
sweet.
we just continue to pass it down. So as I have that on my desk right now as I'm looking at it, the Blessed Mother is proof that women are important in the church, and that women's voices and roles are important in the church.
Mm-hmm.
So make no mistake about it. If it's okay if people don't see it, because we know that it's true. And
Mm-hmm.
our mama reminds us of that. So mission.
So mission. I was just trying to think of an avenue.
A
So
transition.
a transition. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or an avenue.
So this is where I know like the vocation part is where Katie's like brain has been for like a couple years, but
Hmm.
like the mission, the idea of mission is what's been grinding my gears
Okay, so we are
for
on very
quite some time.
opposite ends of this spectrum here. Because
Really?
the mission part I get.
I do see, and at its core, at like so, Katie, do you want to go into
Well,
what?
I think, and I don't know if this is correct or if this is how the world sees it or if this is how the church sees it, but because I've been so confused about vocation, I think I've appropriated mission to be like my constantly renewing goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like, okay, my mission in this job is
Mm-hmm.
to obviously treat others with the dignity that God created them,
Right.
show others the love of Christ, the mercy of Christ, but also, to, you know, put on weekly mass or teach them about religion or
Mm-hmm.
guide them through their college career. It's more of like a two-parter situation. So I think
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't understand, I couldn't wrap my mind around vocation. Mission has kind of become like for me something that is constantly changing because we are constantly changing and you move and you find a new job and whatever.
Right.
But like your goal and how you express your faith in the world.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I agree
Should
100%.
we be taking a tally of how many times I asked, does this make sense in this podcast?
I feel like I've also done the same thing. So you're not alone in this because I feel like my brain is like whooshing around. I mean, that's not even a word either,
No, it's
but
whooshin'. My brain is
it's
whooshin'. Yeah.
it's whooshing with all my
It's
thoughts.
whooshin', baby.
And I agree with that. Absolutely. I think your mission is your why. It's what the goal of you and the organization that you are a part of, or however broad or small you want to make mission, whatever context you use it for. It is and it's funny because when I looked up the definition, the definition is of mission is the vocation or calling of a
Hmm.
religious
Yeah.
organization. So,
Which is not
um,
helpful.
right, exactly. But the thing I really, first of all, I really like that I see how because vocation has been a little messy, that this idea of mission is that it's forever changing. And I think
Hmm.
that's really important. And I think catching them both together can catching up vocation to be able to do the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, and do the same thing in terms of continually changing, I think is really important. The thing that and before I even get into that other part, I think that it's really important too that we're always evaluating ourselves and the work that we do against our mission, because there's nothing for me with faith and not being a person of your word is something that's very important to me.
Hmm.
Something that has been drilled into me growing up with like my nan and my family, that you show up for your people, and if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And that's really what I view mission as, is that mission
Hmm.
is, this is what you say you're going to do. This is how you say you are going to be this example of God's love and mercy in the world. That definition, that is how you say you're going to do that, is your mission. So
Hmm.
if your actions are not comparable to what you say you're going to do, then you need to reevaluate either your actual mission, is that actually what I want to be doing or what I am about, or two, how am I missing that mark?
Hmm.
That's a really good way to keep that center, because unfortunately life gets crazy and messy, and we can sometimes stray from that.
Right.
But I think our mission is what keeps us centered on what our goal is. But what I don't appreciate about mission is when mission is used as a weapon or a tool to kind of backhand, I don't think that's the right word, but that's the image I'm going to go for right now. kind of backhand the work that you're doing. When an
Mhm.
organization is mistreating you or not acknowledging the work you're putting into something or whatever the case is, but is expecting you to show up and give your best because that's the mission. That's
Mm,
our mission, and we need to show up because that's what the mission says. But
sure.
the mission also says that you should be treating me with respect and giving me a livable wage and being kind. But yes, the mission, I have to give 110%
Yeah.
because that's the mission. But you're excused
Yeah.
from being a decent human being, but I have to do it because it's the mission.
When employees are asked to live up to the mission, but the higher ups are not.
Correct.
Yeah,
That I
that's
see that happen so much. And that's why I have that, like, when I hear mission, it like hurts my inside sometimes because my lived experience of being part of another mission, another person's mission, or another organization's mission
hmm
has been really difficult. Even if my personal mission of who Jillian stands for and what Jillian wants to do with her life really aligns with the mission of whatever it is I'm aligning myself with, it hurts even more when it's used in that other
Right.
context because I'm with you. I agree and I do want this. But if you're not supporting me, I can't support you.
Right.
And it's frustrating when it's only one-sided or it feels one-sided in a lot of these spaces.
hmm
And rant.
I wasn't even thinking of it on a larger scale, like
Mhm.
mission statements from like, corporations or anything. I wasn't even thinking about mission like that. I was thinking of it more of like, what is my mission?
Hmm.
As if I am Kim Possible. You do bring up a really good point there, and something that I hadn't really thought of how is it lived up to in every single day life? Like if I'm gonna hold myself to living up to my mission every single day, and sometimes I'm gonna fail. I'm a human being. That's fine. But if corporations are putting out these mission statements and saying, okay, this is who we are, and then nobody's holding them accountable, then
Right.
this kind of it doesn't mean anything. Like the word
Mhm.
itself loses all purpose and meaning,
Right.
right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something to really think about is that reading job descriptions and seeing we're a mission focused company. I see
hmm
that time and time again. We are focused on our mission. And I think going forward, for anyone that's looking for a job or is interviewing at a place that claims to be a mission focused place, a great question to ask is how they live out that mission. And if
hmm
they truly feel like the mission of this organization is being upheld and respected by the people that work there, is
hmm
it, what is it? Where does the mission drive what you do as an institution? And
hmm
again, that doesn't have to just be in a Catholic
No,
institution.
I was just thinking
Missions are
that.
everywhere.
Yeah,
It's
every
not
single
just a
corporation
Catholic
uses
thing.
mission uses that
Yeah.
terminology. Yeah.
And that's why also when it comes to like your vocation or your calling, that's another even a way to that proves
hmm
that you can live out that vocation in a vast number of ways because you can find organizations that you could be whatever it is that your job you're looking for at a place that values being reverent and the dignity of another person as their mission.
hmm
And that's how you can make that connection. You can be that beacon of reverence in the law firm or in whatever.
Yeah.
That's something that's like a really good way to align your work with your faith in a way that maybe you might not have thought about it before. I think having a mission and being true to your mission, I think that's huge. And when we lose sight of our mission or we apologize for our mission or we are allowing things to fall through the cracks or not holding ourselves accountable is when I have seen that kind of be its own worst enemy in a lot of
hmm
ways.
I really like that idea of asking whoever's hiring you how they live up to the mission of the company.
Mm-hmm.
in day-to-day life, like at
Yeah.
work. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously their personal life is their personal life. If their company is saying like, we value and respect every single one of our employees, like how tell me give me an example this week of how you lived up to that mission.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea. I've never thought of that. That's a great interview question.
We've been interviewing for like our peer ministers all day. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm thinking about interviews and stuff
It's
like
in
that.
it's in your head, yeah.
All right. So all of this to say, mission and vocation. I think it's, as we're rounding out our Lenten journey, a good thing to bring to prayer into Holy Week is asking God where God's calling you in the sense of what's your mission? What is it that you want to stand for? Does your actions reflect what you say your mission is?
Mm-hmm.
If you're struggling with occupation and vocation and where all of that fits, slowing down and asking God to show you where the spirit is moving
Mm-hmm.
and be open to that looking very different from what you might have thought it to be can be a really great place to start.
So for our prayer today, we are going to pray to I apologize in advance. My French is terrible. Saint Louis and Zélie Martin. They're the parents of Saint Teresa of Lisieux. Um, it's a very long prayer, so we're just gonna pick. They also had a lot of other children, who are either like in the stages of being canonized or some who have died, some who died very young. They had a lot of hardship, a lot of tragedy, and a lot of beauty in their life. They had considered joining the religious life and then decided to get married. So we're gonna say a quick prayer to them. And I again apologize because I don't speak very good French. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Saints Louis and Zélie Martin, after having had a desire for religious life, you heard the Lord's call to the vocation of marriage. You gave all glory to God through your humble and patient work, your commitment to the poor, your family life, where reigned happiness of loving and being loved. You lived your daily life concretely through the joys and sorrows of your existence. You love us as your own children, with the heart of a father and the heart of a mother, because you are friends of God. Listen to our prayers and intercede for us with God the Father through Jesus Christ our Lord and the grace of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for joining us again this week. Thank you, Julie, most importantly.
No, Katie. Thank you. And follow us on all the things.
Oh, yes. Follow us on our Instagram, What Catholic School Didn't Teach You pod. It's a bunch of
And like and
letters.
subscribe.
Like and subscribe, rate, review, subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
If you want to email us, you can find us at catholicschoolguilt@gmail.com. And we'll see you all next week.
Yes. Make good choices.
Bye, friends.
Bye.